Hello, in this video I'll show you how to understand the Altium file system and how to properly set up your project files so you can not run into issues down the road when first getting started with Altium Designer. I've come across some questions, I've gotten questions from people like, how does this work? Why doesn't this work? Why doesn't the text show up for this symbol, and so on and so forth? And they also said that they put files in the wrong place for Altium. So this is to address these issues and also to show you how to upload your design to Altium 365 and how to get started with 365 as well. Finally, I'll give you an overview of this project. And if you want this project, you can download it from the Altium 365 environment. I've shared the link in the description below. Also, if you need a free trial to Altium 365, the link is also in the description below. And this project, kudos goes to Texas Instruments for making this project. And finally, thank you to Altium for sponsoring this video. Altium Designer, if you don't know, is an electronic computer-aided design software or ECAD tool for creating circuits. Here are the key file types in Altium Designer. First, you have a schematic doc file. I'm looking at a project right now where we have our schematic doc file. This is to represent the schematic file or the schematic. Each page of your schematic in Altium is in a separate file. You may see in other ECAD software where one file captures all the schematic files. Well, no, each schematic has one file. The schematic in the PCB design process, if you're new to it, is that it captures all of the conceptual high-level component symbols. Like, these are just drawings or symbols to represent real devices in real life. How they're connected, you connect them up, wire them up, and this is the overall plan for how to get a functional design. The electronics design engineer will send the plan to the PCB layout expert, who's an expert in mechanical design, signal integrity, EMI, and then tell them, what to watch out for electrically and whatnot. These two jobs are still separate, but more and more electrical engineers are being expected to know how to do schematic and PCB layout and as standard. So this PCB doc file has your mechanical implementation of your design. You need to deal in the real world. It has your cross-section of your PCB, like the vias, if you heard about vias, traces, tracks. And this is the PCB. And then these are the components on the PCB, which we call the PCB assembly. The entire thing together is the PCB assembly, PCB plus the components, because you assemble the components onto the PCB. This is a pad that's part of this larger area under the device that we call a footprint. There's a file that stores these footprints, and it's called the PCB Lib file. So if we click on here, this PCB Lib file, if we go into our PCB library panel, shows you all the footprints. Like, you can store footprints, many footprints in one single file. These footprints you can attach 3D models to, and then those you can drop into your PCB. So if I go back to my project, the PCB itself is this thing. So all the footprints, it has like 60 footprints on here, something like that. And you can put those onto your PCB. But how do you get those footprints and put onto your PCB? Well, it's through kind of an indirect fashion. You can't just do that directly. Well, you can, but you wouldn't want to. What you do in your PCB footprints that are defined, you want these to be used by the schematic symbols. What's a schematic symbol? That's these things in the schematic document. These schematic symbols give you, it's the glue that connects everything as far as instantiating a device or the concept of a device. And these are stored in their own folder called the .SchLib folder or schematic library folder. Okay. So if you click on here, this is schematic library folder, and you click on this panel, schematic library. You can go ahead and use tools to create new components, so on and so forth. And each component in the schematic library has many different properties. If you go to panels, choose properties, it pulls up like the design item ID, the designator, the part number, what type of part is it. You can click to preview a PCB footprint. How do you do this? Well, you can associate different files with the schematic symbol, simulation, IBIS model for signal integrity and high-speed digital interfaces, on PCB 3D, signal integrity, footprint. See this footprint right there. So you associate all this information with the schematic symbol, and the schematic symbol ties it all together. You save that library, go back to your projects, go back to your schematic, then you can go to your panels, components panel, Then in this drop down, choose the schematic library, this local file. Then double click, place your component from the schematic library on here. This has the footprint associated with it along with the 3D model. You make your wiring connections in the schematic. Then you use the project panel to update your PCB, and this operation drops all your components onto the PCB with all the electrical information that you need to build an intelligent printed circuit board. Okay, that's how the footprints get on there. You do have other things like integrated libraries in Altium Designer, where you can have your PCB footprints and your schematic symbols attached to each other like permanently, and you're unable to edit the integrated library. That's something that's kind of unique to Altium Designer, I would say. Maybe other ECAD software tools have it, but this is the first software tool that I know has it, just to prevent people from inadvertently or mistakenly modifying the schematic symbol, because your components are like the most important part of your PCB design. Having the right components and models is the foundation of having a successful PCB. Moving on. Next in our project, we have this thing called a bill of materials. You can right click and add a new active BOM to Altium. Now here's the thing, a bill of materials really is a list of materials like components that you would include in your design, your schematic, your PCB, whatever. But active BOM is a schematic spreadsheet with real world data. Okay, so it has your printed circuit board as part of the components you need to buy. Pretty much this is your buy list to make this entire project possible. And you can add new, you can add a solution where you find suppliers that provide the manufacturer part number, and where you can, it has links to where you can get all of these components. You put that in there, it tells you if it's in stock, it tells you how many are available, what revision of the component it is. So this is, this whole ecosystem is just like the best project management. Well, the best bill of materials management I've ever worked with, and the best project management is in Altium 365, but I will get into that a bit later. Now, with all this information, let's get into where these files are actually located. You can right click and any of the files, right click and hit explore, and they are just saved locally right here in the same folder as your project. And that's the best practice. You want to keep all your files in the same folder as your project, and that's pretty much it. You can have other files too, like PCB outputs. If you want, you can right click, add an outdrop file. This is for manufacturing. This is pretty much your manufacturing files. For setting up a project in Altium Designer, you can watch my tutorial series to do that, but basically file new project. When you create a new project, you can choose to add it to your 365 workspace or store your project locally. I like putting all my projects in my 365 workspace, giving it a project name, and then your project is stored in the cloud. And what do I mean by the cloud? I'm talking about Altium 365. I can go to my Altium 365 workspace environment by clicking on this globe. When I do that, it pulls up this entire set of projects. It has nice visuals for each of these projects. It has your components, right? So honestly, I've worked with many different project lifecycle management software tools like Arena, Agile, and whatnot. They are too slow. All right. They're too slow. They're inefficient. I can't see things visually like this, and it's so easy to make mistakes. But in Altium 365, I have everything available to me. I can preview the footprints. Look at that. I can preview the schematic symbols, the data sheets. It loads very quickly, like I said, and everything is connected. I can see who's on what project visually and graphically. I just love Altium 365. I can go and create and upload a project and check this out. You can upload different projects to this. If you haven't seen my video on using Altium 365, my first impressions for what this crazy new stuff that they're doing, I don't think anyone else is doing this, check out that video. All right, that's Altium 365. We have our components. We have our MCAD code designer. You can add things like SolidWorks. They support pretty much all the popular MCAD software. You have your administration panel where you have your general, your projects, your Vault, Explorer, part providers that you want. You can see which projects were shared with you. And it's just really the best project management software out there for PCB design, hands down, along with the automatic Git version control. That's just unbeatable. That's Altium 365. And what's cool is whatever you're working on locally, as long as you're connected to your workspace, you can choose save to server, and it will save your design to your project server. Okay. I already saved mine, but let me show you the process. If I were to click on save to server, click save, it will do that and commit new files, new BOM or something like that. I can also compare PCB and BOM to, hit click on OK. No Git versioning, no Git pull, commit, all that stuff. No push, whatever, to update my files. And that is just fantastic and phenomenal. Again, if you would like this project, you can go ahead and click the link in the description below, get Altium 365 free trial, and go ahead and play with this project. So what is this project? This project is a flyback converter. The flyback converter is the most important power electronics project to learn if you are starting off in PCB design as an electrical hardware engineer. If there's any switch mode power converter you need to know, it's the flyback converter. Why? Because the flyback is in power supplies. So whether it's the Apple power supply, for your MagSafe, whatever, whether it's your Windows PC power supply, it's going to have some kind of flyback in it, because the flyback can take that AC, 120 volts AC, and take it through a step-down transformer, put it through some capacitors to give you a nice clean output voltage. Now you'll have a feedback control. Here's an isolated feedback control. It goes here, it goes into your control device, and then does the control in such a way that you get clean voltage output, clean voltage stable output. Okay, so you've learned pretty much everything you need to get started in Altium Designer, from the file system to what the files are used for in Altium, why they're important, how they're connected, and how to upload your design to Altium 365. Again, check out this design in Altium 365. You get a free trial to it. The links are in the description below. I will be releasing more PCB design videos on just the basics of PCB design to get started, to explain all of these key terms in PCB design in general and what's important and what you need to know. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.